Welcome to United Way of King County's weekly live stream update. This week's live stream is presented by Symetra, and we'll be talking about the barriers facing community college students' success and how the community is working to help them overcome economic hardships so they can finish their education and access living wage careers. Joining us today are Lyanne O'Connell, Seattle College's Scholarship and Program Director, and Charlotte Gavell, United Way of King County's College Success and Housing Stability Manager. If you have questions for Lyanne or Charlotte, please be sure to type them in the chat window and we'll try to get to them all following the discussion. With that, I'll pass it over to Charlotte to start us off.
Great, thanks, Jared. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Charlotte Gavell, and I'm the College Success and Housing Stability Program Manager here at United Way of King County, where I lead our Bridge to Finish work, which is our college completion strategy in the region. I'm excited to join one of our amazing partners in this work, Lyanne O'Connell, to talk about our collective work to support students in our community and the specific work that Seattle Colleges is doing right now. Lyanne is the Seattle College's Scholarship and Program Director and will be sharing more with us today about their important work. Thank you, Lyanne, so much for taking the time to connect today. It's always so great to chat with you about these issues that we care so much about. Would you mind starting off by just sharing more about your role and a little bit about the Seattle College's student body?
Well, yes, and thank you, Charlotte, for the introduction, and thanks for inviting me to this conversation. I'm obviously Lyanne O'Connell, Scholarship Program Director for the Foundation, and our real mission at the Foundation, as an institutionally related foundation, is to serve the Seattle Central College, North Seattle College, and South Seattle College through the Office of Advancement. We coordinate and conduct all of our fundraising efforts to really advance the mission of the Seattle colleges and work with a lot of donors and connect them to the students and to support and the support of our students in our programs at the colleges. And my specific position at the Foundation as a Scholarship and Program Director is to really manage our annual scholarship program. So we just wrapped up our annual season, scholarship season, and awarded over 300 students for the next academic year, which for us is starting next week as summer quarter begins. And so those scholarships are really to help students enter, retain, and stay at the college and complete those degrees. But I also support our quarterly scholarship programs, which are more specific. And so we have a lot dedicated to retention and completion, but also for emergency funding as well. And so manage a variety of different programs at the college, but really about supporting and funding our students and making sure they get the support they need when they enter the college, but also all the way to the end towards completion.
Definitely. Thanks so much for sharing that overview of your work and everything that you're up to right now. It sounds like a busy time, so extra thanks for connecting today. You mentioned a bit about supporting students in addressing these non-academic barriers that come up throughout their student experience. That's also why for the audience that's watching today, that's how Lyanne and I connect as we think about how we're supporting students to overcome these barriers in a lot of partnership with the Bridge to Finish program. Basic needs security includes things like food and housing security. And in recent years, there's really been a growing national dialogue on how these issues affect students and their ability to stay in and be successful in school. It's also been a top barrier identified by students, particularly attending community and technical colleges here in Washington State. In a recent survey, students here shared that more than half are self-identified as low income, and 1 in 5 students in Washington state reported on this survey that they experienced homelessness or housing security in the last year. Lyanne, the economic impact of COVID is affecting so many people right now. And knowing that these needs were coming up for students before COVID, how are you seeing this impacting community college students now?
Yeah, this has been took a really huge hit to our students at the community colleges. Our community colleges are quite a diverse population. I mean, your average median age is 28, and we have 20% of our students who have dependents. And so this economic downturn has really impacted their ability to stay in school. I mean, before the pandemic hit, 54% of our students were working while attending school. But then we saw a large number of them get laid off. Our rough estimates are about 16,000 students. 16,000 students were laid off in this pandemic and this time frame. And if we look at a smaller cohort within the colleges, our healthcare students who were close to graduating, 75% of those students were laid off. And I mean, we're talking about our future nurses, our respiratory care providers. I mean, these are essential positions that are highly needed. And unfortunately, we're laid off, and we're working to pay for school at this time. Some of these programs, unfortunately, aren't covered by financial aid, and so they rely on working to pay for all the additional credentials that they need to even actually work in the field. And so being laid off and being impacted by this has been huge for this small group of students, but we know that it's spread out through the entire college system itself. We also, with our emergency funds program, we saw a drastic increase in our emergency funds application. I mean, this pandemic started and we saw applications triple over just the spring quarter alone. And our staff has been doing an amazing job trying to connect these students as fast as possible to the resources they need. And like you said, housing and food were the number one request that we're seeing. Our normal request averaged between $500 to $1,000 per student, and now we're seeing requests over $2,500 per application. And so there's this tremendous need for our students. And for example, reading through some of these applications, we have so many single parents and single mothers trying to parent. Right, this pandemic did multiple things, and not only laid off many students, but from their work. But then we all have to shift. Right, we all have to shift from an in-person school model to an online model, which created a lot of stress for students who have never used technology for their learning. And we know that it's a challenge. Students sign up for in-person classes because that's their mode, or that's the way they want to learn. And so to move to an online format was a challenge, but then also to have children who now had to move to an online model and be staying home. We had several mothers indicate that they had to quit their jobs so they weren't laid off, but they had to quit their jobs because they had to be home with their children to take care of their children and homeschool them during this time period. And of course, because they left their positions, weren't unfortunately unable to qualify for unemployment. And so just that struggle alone, and being able to be at home and then support a family on top of that has been a huge struggle. And our staff has been scrambling to get them the technology, the resources, whether it's counseling as well. We saw a huge an increase in our mental health for our students, due to isolation, of course, and the financial stress overall for these students. And so staff at the colleges have been doing a fantastic job trying to not only connect them with internal or college-based resources, but looking at partners externally like United Way to really connect them to the resources they need to survive during this time period.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing all of that and important context for what students are going through right now. And also, we've really appreciated being able to work with dynamic college staff like you who are thinking through, okay, how do we pivot really quickly to respond to what students are telling us they're needing right now to stay in school? I want to touch on racial equity and how that's really critical in this work. We know that 47% of community college students in our region are students of color. How does the Seattle colleges see the added economic implications of COVID response and recovery as being important while addressing these inequities that we're seeing for students of color and persistence and completion that are already so pronounced in education and in our country as a whole?
Yeah, the COVID-19 really exacerbated the issue and further shines really a light on the challenges that these students are facing through access, financial assistance, right? We're having families having to figure out how to reprioritize, right? Do I choose education or do I choose feeding my family? It's a huge battle, and it just, which is why it's so important. And the colleges play such a huge role in this racial equity issue, because really education is the best way to break the cycle of poverty. And yet, poverty makes things going to college really tough. Like I shared with you before, I mean, students are struggling to decide, how do I go to school and yet know that I have all these other responsibilities that need to be taken care of. And so it's really brought to light more and more of inequities that we've already seen. And you're right, it's pronounced, but I think this really highlighted some of the other challenges in which, the colleges have had to shift, right? How do we provide the best services? How do we serve these populations that we were maybe putting a Band-Aid on certain resources, but now we really need to think about systematically, how do we make larger change to really support these students? If we say we're here to educate, we're not here, we have to support them all the way through. And what that looks like doesn't mean just provide tuition and fees. It's about providing the services they need to actually, get the housing they need, the food to eat, the support they need, mental health support they need. We have to really think about the bigger picture of how to support these students from start to finish. Because, we interviewed a student as part of a scholarship program, and we had to interview the student from his car. He's homeless. And the interview happened in his car through Zoom. And, and it was challenging to knowing that these are what the students are truly experiencing. We were experiencing with the student as we were meeting with the student and hearing their story. And yeah, it says a lot about the challenges and spotlighting really what maybe we kind of knew, but really feeling the impact one-on-one with these students. And I know United Way has done a lot around this work as well. So what have you all learned through your programming, Charlotte?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. And all of that really resonates with what we're hearing from students right now as well. We've learned a lot over the past couple of years of working with colleges in the region and with students and partnering to achieve their college and career goals. And we both built our practices around national best practices, such as from Single Stop, that provides a lot of the same kind of financial interventions for students to kind of stabilize their financial situation while in school. But we've also really, like you were just saying, talked to a lot of students, and we know that as the current social context continues to change, it's so important to continue those conversations and gather student input on the services that our program is providing. So I'll focus in on just sharing a little bit more about our homelessness prevention and rent assistance work, as well as our emergency financial grants. Both have been informed directly by what students have told us they need right now. Students need money, and they need it fast, so that they don't need to worry about paying that bill that is lingering over their head, and they just need to focus on, preparing for next quarter or whatever it may be. And so we've seen an uptick in requests for these kind of cash assistance supports. Of course, connection to public benefits, financial aid assistance, all of that remains really important. But what students are telling us is that it's that really direct assistance with navigating those more complex financial emergencies that's really important. As we're also really continuously designing and improving these programs, as you said, Lyanne, to really improve our system so that we're serving students today, but building a system that works for students tomorrow. We've really been intentional to work with students and ensure that low-income students, particularly students of color, first generation, and parenting students, are at the center of those decisions. So that really makes us ensure that every process we're creating is easy to access, quick to apply, and there's a person there to support if needed. So we have taken a coaching approach to all of these supports that we provide at the Seattle colleges and at other colleges in the region to ensure that students are getting that support that they need to persist and stay in school and have a person to help them along the way. One other thing that we're looking in, and you mentioned technology. So we've definitely done our fair share of distributing laptops across the region and getting students supported with technology that they need to stay in school. We've also thought about ways of leveraging technology as a resource to help students stay in school. So an example of that is the EdQuity tool, which is an app-based platform that allows emergency aid to be distributed using a research-based algorithm. And we're piloting that right now to really learn how that can be used as a tool to get emergency funds to students quickly. You mentioned that emergency aid requests have really gone up quickly at the Seattle colleges, and we're also seeing the same with EdQuity, that there has been a really fast increase of requests since the launch of that application recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, heart-wrenching when you see all these applications come in. I mean, the teams are trying to, share their stories as fast as possible, right? So that we can help advocate for the resources that needed to get what they need as fast as possible. Yeah, our staff aren't just reading the stories there, and again, we've had to change our processes to get those dollars, like you said, out to students as fast as possible. Instead of these longer terms processes, we've had to really quickly figure out ways how can we not only provide them those supports quickly, but advocate for other resources that are needed that maybe we don't currently offer at the colleges.
Definitely. Lyanne, you mentioned advocacy. I'm wondering if there's anything more that you can share with our audience today about the advocacy work that you do, but also the role that all of us can play in that.
Yeah, advocacy is so important, especially with community college students. Again, like I mentioned, they are just such a diverse population that the needs are, widespread, I would say, and we need to support them and provide them the resources they need. And so, my job, really, and the work of the colleges is to identify those barriers, and figure out what we can do to be innovative and find ways we can take those barriers down and find new ways to do the work, but provide better service to our students. And so, when we're out in the community and working with our community partners, like yourself, Charlotte, it's been such a great partnership with United Way to help us fill in those gaps, right? Identify those needs and then partner with other organizations or donors to provide those assistance that we can't provide at the colleges ourselves. And so it's so important to share those stories and share with leadership and make those next changes that need for long-term success, right? We don't want to, for us, it's not about just putting a Band-Aid on it again. It's about how do we make long-term investments and provide the resources and policies and systems and put systems in place that can help our students long-term success beyond the college, right? Our goal is to get them through the college and complete, but also be successful beyond attending any of our Seattle colleges. We want them to be successful in their careers and, of course, really move up that promote social mobility and really increase their ability to be successful long term. So.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing more about that. I'm wondering, we have a couple minutes left. Lyanne, you mentioned that you have some messages from this year's graduating class. Can we watch one of these videos created by students?
Yeah, I'd love to share it.
Great, thanks.
Hi, Seattle community. My name is Josue. I recently received my associate's degree at Seattle Central Community College with an emphasis on equity and social justice. I most recently received news that I'll be able to attend the University of Washington for the following school year. I'm the first in my family to go to college, and I'm grateful for the great education I have received at Central. I am from Mexico. I immigrated with my family here when I was just 3 years old. My worry right now is for my friends and my community members who are yet to finish. Many have been affected, they have lost their jobs, and their future is questionable. Please contribute to the Seattle College's COVID-19 Relief Fund and get them the help that they need. Please visit stayinschool.org. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us share that. I mean, yeah, this is just one example of the students who we're so excited to see all of them graduate. We have over 3,000 students graduating tomorrow. So it's been exciting, and to see that they've made it and through these challenges. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, congrats to all the graduates. And such an important video to share. Thank you for both to you for sharing that video from the student and for Josue for creating that video. I think it's time to see if we have any questions from the chat. Jared, can you get those to us?
Absolutely. Thank you for both of you for sharing what you have. We've got a question from Michael. Community colleges are the engine of equity and social opportunity and could have their budget slashed as the state cuts back. Is United Way planning to advocate for strong continued public funding?
Yeah, so what I can share is that we are continuing to work with all of the colleges in the region for our Bridge to Finish work this coming year to ensure that we're supporting our programming as it is right now and the continued goals of that programming to support students in their non-academic challenges to staying in school. So that means that we'll be continuing to provide direct services, work with college staff and faculty to ensure that those supports are well integrated, and also think about systems change for the long term. You can find out more about policy and advocacy agendas on the United Way website.
Thank you. Kate asks, people often think about college students as a 19-year-old right out of high school. Is that necessarily the case, or are there adults enrolled trying to build a career and a living income for their families as well?
Right. A lot of our community college students aren't your traditional students who's coming right out of high school. We do have a large population of those students, but really a majority of our population are those within, in their late 20s who I've had, I was just looking at our scholars that we just awarded. I had students who were, in their 40s all the way to their 60s who are returning, wanting to either look into new careers. A lot of these students are trying to upskill, what they, into new positions or to higher positions. And so we have a wide range of students at the colleges. And that's why when I say we have a diverse population, it's all over the map of students we serve. And I mean, so we're not just serving your 19-year-olds, but we are serving students who come from all walks of life, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would echo all of what Lyanne just said. With our Bridge to Finish work, both at the Seattle colleges and other colleges in the region, the average age of students that we're working with is 28. And we have had students in their 60s come to our program, and also, you know, the 18-year-old that you mentioned. We also know that about 1/3 of our students are parenting students, and Lyanne mentioned that earlier, the unique challenges that especially parenting students are facing in this COVID response environment.
Thank you. I've got one more question before I hand it back to you guys to say your goodbyes to our viewing audience. And that is, can you donate supplies to Equity?
That's an interesting question. So Equity is an app-based tool that does have a resource navigation section on it. The best thing to do is, if you want to donate any supplies or funds to any of these efforts, to do so either through the United Way website, or if you have supplies, to donate those by reaching out to the Benefits Hub program at benefitshub@uwkc.org, and we can work with our college partners to distribute those supplies.
Thank you. Well, Charlotte and Lyanne, before I read us off of today's broadcast, I'll hand it back to you for any final words you'd like to leave our viewers with.
Well, I just want to thank you for inviting me again. It's such a pleasure to see you, Charlotte, and I always work with you. And, you know, United Way has been such a great partner at all three colleges. And so really appreciate the support of United Way and continued partnership in the future. So thank you again.
Yeah, right back at you, Lyanne. It's always so good to get to see you, even if it's through a computer screen,
Right.
And chat about this work that we care so much about, and for just the continued partnership of the Seattle colleges, as we're really looking to increase college completion in our region. And special thanks to the viewers today for joining us and learning a bit more about the Bridge to Finish work, and specifically the incredible work that the Seattle colleges is doing to support students attending their institutions. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you both for your work and your dedication to help meet the critical needs of so many, both before and now as we're seeing the needs growing to the impact of COVID-19. Thank you also to Symetra for presenting today's live stream, and to you, our viewers, for your questions and for continuing to learn about ways that you can make an impact for good in our community. We'll be taking a break next week from our live stream, but we'll be back on Wednesday, July 8th, for a conversation with some United Way Emerging Leader 365 members about what they've been doing in the past few months. You can also learn more about how United Way and our partners are addressing critical needs head on, and how you can give to the Community Relief Fund or volunteer to help at uwkc.org. Thank you for joining us, and have a